Welcome back to a bit about crypto. This is David Hampton, the Robo Recruiter. We have a very special guest. I call him the man, the myth, and the legend. Arthur from Poke Network. How are you doing today? Or Pocket? Is it Pocket Network? Is that how you say it?
Yeah. It's Pocket Network, and yeah, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. You're a very mysterious man. I mean, you had a young, beautiful lady, very sweet lady, Magdalena. I say lady, she was a young woman, and get us set up for this, and very mysterious for me. So can you go ahead and wipe that mystery away and tell us about yourself, introduce yourself, who you are, kind of where you came from, that kind of thing?
Sure. So my name is Arthur Sabintsev. I'm the Chief Information Officer at Pocket Network. I am in charge of product engineering, quality delivery, everything that pretty much isn't related to marketing or biz dev. Everything else falls under my purview when it comes to building out our company. We are around 70 to 80 people at this point. Magdalena specifically is one of our marketing managers, so she's in charge of setting up events like these, amongst other responsibilities that she has, and she is great. So I appreciate you mentioning that. And in general, I've been with Pocket for about 9-10 months at this point, but I have been following Pocket since before it was even a company, because I happened to become internet friends with the CEO through a very funny and crazy manner. So it's kind of how I ended up here. It took 5 years, but I'm finally working with him. So
okay. Well, I mean, before we get into that crazy introduction or meeting, tell us about, like, where are you from? Where did you grow up? How did you grow up? Like, I mean, how did you
sure.
how did you evolve into Arthur, not Art?
Yeah, it's fine. Thank you. Let's see. My parents are Soviet immigrants in the 80s, met here. I was born shortly thereafter. I grew up in the Maryland area. I'm still here now, but I spent a good chunk of my life living in New York and DC and Texas for various reasons. But yeah, basically went to school for pre-med, somehow graduated with not one, but two, almost 3 degrees in physics. I have 2 degrees in physics. Spent the early 2000s, like 2004 or 5 until 2010, doing Firefox extension development for fun instead of studying. I spent 2011 to 2021 or so doing mobile development did that to get paid. And then I just started in the crypto space, or in the blockchain space, this year. Obviously, like many other folks, I've been following it, investing here and there, but stars aligned at some point in the last, I'd say about a year now almost, and I decided to make the leap. My background is basically I spent the last 5 to 6 years of the last decade plus. Instead of engineering, I've been doing engineering management, and over time growing my teams and my purview to be larger and larger. And I got here, and now I manage a team of about 40 people. I think maybe a little more, which is fun, right? Offers all its challenges. Everyone has different goals and different personalities and aspirations, and comes with different levels of experience. And some people want to manage themselves, so I have tiers of that. So what I'm doing now effectively is steering an organization from like a technical operations perspective, like into the future. And we have really no playbook here, right? The space that we're in is so new. And what we specifically do at Pocket Network, which is decentralized infrastructure, is extremely unique in the industry. So we're kind of just figuring it out as we go. And, we've made some missteps. I'm sure we'll make some more, but, we're doing the best that we can. And it's fun ride that we're on right now. But overall, things are going great.
That's awesome. So let's talk about Pocket Network and talk about infrastructure. And I mean, I'm sure there's a lot to talk about in that regard, but I mean, what's exciting about what's going on with Pocket Network? What do you guys what do you really enjoy about what you guys are doing? What is it that you're excited about what you guys are going to do? Let's get into that.
Sure. So Pocket Network is what we say is Web3 decentralized infrastructure. So in the blockchain industry, in the crypto industry, there are essentially something called the trilemma, which is, can you make a blockchain secure, stable, and decentralized? Secure, scalable, and decentralized. So as an example, Bitcoin is secure and decentralized, but does not scale well. Ethereum
Right.
is
It's slow. It's slow in
it's slow.
transactions. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So that's why there's a Lightning Network, and there's something similar goes with Ethereum as well, right? It's decentralized to a point. I think with proof of stake, it's a little more decentralized. Maybe not. It really depends on how you compare mining pools versus staking and delegated staking pools or staking pools in general. But effectively, what we try to do is we've built our own blockchain that relays. Sorry, let me fix this real quick. That relays requests to and from apps through a decentralized pool of nodes or groups of nodes to process your requests and then sends back the results. So basically, to give you an idea, let's say you've built, well, I'll take a step back. I have to give you a little bit more backstory. Basically, let's say you want to build some type of app. Let's say this app wants to pull like the latest information about NFTs. So sure, you can go off, take your mobile app or a web browser, build an app in, Kotlin, Swift, JavaScript, whatever language you want to use. But how are you actually going to get the data from the blockchain? So there's a couple of ways you can do it these days. One, you could hire someone else or do this yourself. You could go to some cloud provider, set up a machine, a server, just set up a node, effectively something that can sync with the network you're interested in getting the NFTs from. So let's say it's Ethereum, and you can now keep that node in sync and pull data from. But you have pull data down into your app, create an API, and grab that data. That is a lot of work to just bootstrap an application, right? Because it's like a whole nother skill set is needed just to fetch the data. And if you're sorry.
Right. It's, I mean,
yeah.
I get, I'm trying to follow you. So, I mean, it's super interesting and complex what you're describing. I mean, so basically, so continue.
No, it's okay.
I'm enthralled. I'm learning. This is like, learning, drinking water through a fire hose, man. So go ahead.
Sure. I'm happy. I'm more than happy to proselytize and teach this stuff. Is fun. So, basically, if it becomes prohibitively expensive if you want to do this at scale. You need to have especially if you want highly performant or low latent connection speeds. So you have to effectively maintain like in your entire infrastructure, cloud provide infrastructure, just to be able to connect to a node around the, so if you have an app that's around the world, like, distributed through the web or mobile, but you've only deployed your nodes, your servers in one part of the world, it's not going to be super performant. And plus it's going to be, it might be unstable if that part of the world goes through some type of natural disaster or an electrical outage or something happens. So there are a few solutions to this problem. One is centralized solutions like Alchemy and Infuro, which basically provide you what we call remote procedural call access or RPC access to these nodes. And then there's what we do, which is effectively provide a similar service, but in a decentralized manner, meaning that we don't actually stand up the infrastructure ourselves. We've created an incentive mechanism to incentivize people around the world to stand up nodes on various cloud providers on using different types of setups to do it on your behalf. And we've done this with our token, which we call POCT or POKT. And I can go into that, but I'll stop that in case you have questions.
Okay, so you've created a token, you've incentivized the people to build on this, right, to help the others who need this to be built on your network, essentially. Is that? I mean, yes. I'm grossly simplifying it, but you've created an incentive for. So in essence, I mean, I'm going to put it to you in my language that I like. You're essentially like a middleman network for the people who know how to do that and the people who need it. Right. That's really the basics of it, right?
Yes. So I'll explain like the nuance of it too in a moment. But I think you've said it. We are a middleman. We're a middle layer. So imagine the examples that I like to give. Like my boss Mike, he likes to give one example, which is the obvious one here, and I like to give a different one from my own personal experience. So Mike likes to give the example of a gold rush. I think that's the one he gives, or maybe I like to give it and I've attributed it to him at this point. Who knows? We've talked so much, okay, I forgot. But basically,
I think I know where you're going.
Right, you have the gold rush in the 1840s, right? Like, who makes money in the gold rush? It's not the people making gold, right?
I'm gonna beat you to the punchline. It's not the people who are getting the gold, it's the people who are providing the tools to get the
Exactly.
gold.
Right.
That's who made the money.
Yes. And in my personal example that I personally like, so I used to work at Capital One in the credit card industry for a long, for 3-4 years. And the Capital One processes its own credit cards for the most part. So credit card processors make a ton of money. They charge 2 to 4%, if not more.
2%, yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And they essentially take a percentage of those profits and they delegate it out as credit card rewards or points to credit card users. So basically, we have a very similar model here to that. So going back to Pocket Network, we effectively have a token, and the token is used in a few different ways. There's the obvious way where people can hold it for speculative purposes, investors, and then there's two ways from a utility point of view. One, you can lock up 15,000 or more tokens, and those tokens in a node, and that node can be hosted anywhere in the US on any type of infrastructure provider. And assuming that it is, if it is performance, it will be pseudo-randomly chosen to process relays or process API requests, read or writes from a blockchain, and each node at the moment can support up to 15 different blockchains. So it can read and write data from up to 15 different blockchains. And if it is chosen to process these requests, it generates new tokens. Those tokens can then be held onto for speculative purposes. They can be staked in new nodes. They can be used to stake an existing node, because we have a new thing where you can stake a node up to 4 times 15,000, so 60,000 tokens to get 4x the rewards. Or you could sell it on an exchange. So we're on a lot of, we're on a bunch of exchanges, not the tier 1 exchanges yet. We're working on getting there. And the people who tend to buy it are, again, people who are speculators or people who want to stake their own nodes. However, we were supposed to launch this today, but we're launching this on Tuesday, is we are going to activate the other side of our marketplace. So what I've described is our supply side marketplace, which is a supply of decentralized infrastructure providers. We have a demand of app developers, or app developers pushing relays or API requests through our network. So the way that has worked up until today, or up until next week, is we have subsidized that fully for the vast majority of our customers, because we were building out our decentralized network and proving out that we can do that, because that's much harder to prove out. So that's what's been done over 2 years since we launched our mainnet. So what we're starting to do is we're going to start charging users on Tuesday to effectively buy Pocket through us. And we'll have a bring your own Pocket option later on this year, but effectively people will buy Pocket through us if they go beyond our 250,000 token limit. I think that's relay limit per day. I think that's the way we've designed it to work. So, taking a step back. So people will come and pay for will buy a token through us. We'll run it through our market maker through the exchanges, adding buy pressure on the exchange. So the token, so people will be buying tokens into our platform. And then we'll lock those tokens up. And each of those tokens represents throughput. So if you lock a certain amount of tokens, it'll add a certain amount of throughput or bandwidth or amount of relays you can launch per day. And I don't remember the exact numbers, and those numbers will be tweaked over time. But basically, the goal here is to have people pay for the token, which will pay for the service, and then mint new tokens to incentivize node runners to continue running this. So this cycle, we create like a supply and demand flywheel. However, we still have inflation. Right. Over time, once all of this is figured out and we get the equilibrium that we need in here, we're going to introduce an active burning mechanism for tokens that are used or that whenever relays are processed. But that's still
for scarcity purposes, right? To make it more valuable. For
exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Because sound money or sound currency is all about scarcity, divisibility, portability. Right. Those are
sure. So I don't know if I would. So we're more of a utility. So I would like to treat. I'd like to think about it as utility. But yes, I understand. It's utility is still. So energy is still scarce, right? There's still oil is still scarce. Things of that nature are still scarce. So the basic idea is the market will regulate itself, right? We have a DAO that will govern some of the parameters, the initial parameters, and then over time those will change as the ecosystem evolves. But we have a huge percentage of our token stake. I think we have 1.42 or 1.4 billion tokens in circulation, and we had some crazy inflation earlier in the year. We reduced it by 80% at this point, or 75 to 80%. And we're going to continuously reduce it. But the idea is when we add this demand side pressure with people paying for the service, it will begin putting organic market pressure. So it'll realign our incentives, right? It'll no longer be, subsidized by the company.
Got it.
So yeah, that's kind of where we're going here. We're trying to activate our flywheel right now.
So I'm a user. I'm interested in getting a Pocket a token, right? What on Tuesday? What's it going to cost me?
So the token is whatever it is that says on CoinGecko. That's what each token costs. So somewhere between 9 and 11 cents. It fluctuates, depending on when you look. It's all over the place. So if you're in the US, which I assume you are, there are two exchanges that we work with are OKCoin and MEXC. So you can create an account, and OKCoin does dollar-based pairs. So it's like Pocket and the pairs Pocket and USD, and MEXC does it with Tether, so USDT. So you can buy it there, and they have their different rules and how they work, and I think that's beyond the scope of this.
Gotcha. Okay.
But you can buy it there.
All right.
And from there, you can transfer it to your wallet. We have a wallet called wallet.poc.network, and there's some unofficial wallets in the network that exist. One is called poctwallet.io, so POKT wallet.io, who we will be working with soon, and that's a Chrome extension that's akin to MetaMask. And then from there, the world is your oyster. There's a dozen different staking options, right? So there's a bunch of companies that are built around Pocket who provide staking services. Either we have a liquidity mining service called Thunderstake or ThunderPoc. They have a rebasing token called TPOC. So that works kind of like staked ETH or STETH, which is Lido's product. And then we have another one that works like I forgot what they call it, but the value of the token changes as more Pocket is generated. So that's something like Rocket Pool ETH. So they have that's called Wrap TPOC. So TPOC is a Polygon token, and Wrap TPOC is a Ethereum token. And then there are other pools that we have. We have some pools that will do, you can put your tokens in and they'll give you, they'll take a rev share. And there's other tokens where you can pay in fiat flat out or in stable coins. And you keep 100% of the profits. So we built a bunch of people have built businesses on top of Pocket Network, which is really cool, right? So we have this, of course, we effectively built a protocol with our own business on top of it to bootstrap the protocol. And now a bunch of entities have come in and built their own businesses on the supply side, on the infrastructure side, on top of that.
And you're getting a piece of that action, right? That's how.
Well, we do everything through the token. I mean, we have plans on how we're not going to really try to compete with our ecosystem, but we're going to try to do value add service things that only we can do. Because at the moment we have many pieces that are decentralized, but we are not fully decentralized yet. Access into our decentralized network is through this centralized piece called the portal. And we plan in the next year to year and a half to decentralize that as well. And that'll create new businesses for other people. So the goal is to decentralize ourselves away, but that does not mean we cannot exist in running in some of these spaces where we want to run some businesses. We can build marketplaces and other things, and that is down the line. We have a lot of ideas on what we want to do as a company, and as we scale these ideas, we're starting to take bets on these and hire to take some of these bets. Nothing's really set in stone, and I don't know what I want to talk about just yet out loud.
Okay. No, I appreciate that honesty. So, and then I'm not trying to pry into that. I know there's some things that we got to keep held to the chest to make it more exciting down the line. So I mean, so speaking of which, in terms of this growth that you're foreseeing, I mean, let's talk about. I mean, you're managing a team of 40. How big is the company right now? How big is Pocket?
75. It's like 75 to 80 people. And I'm getting a few more people. I don't know, like 20 open recs, I think. I know I have 13 open recs, but the idea is to double that soon. I mean, if things go well, we'll blow past 100 people by Christmas. At the rate that we're going.
That's ambitious. And so let me ask you this. I mean, how do you guys how do you view hiring? I mean, is it a challenge for you? Is it fun for you? I'm sure there's different. I mean, it's just how do you, and I'll say it this way in terms of like hiring. I mean, there's hiring in which you got to get like bodies in, right? That's kind of one trap that I like to talk about, or understand. And then there's the actual like, okay, we got to get the right people and enroll them in terms of the mission to make sure that they're on for the long term, because nobody wants to hire someone just for them to leave 2 months later, because it's not working out for
Sure.
them or whatever the reason may be. So I mean, so talk about that. I mean, what do you?
Sure. So yeah, I can share some of that. So I'll say this. When in prior places in my career, I had the thought, like many other managers had, is like, if I ever get a chance to kind of run the show, I'm going to do things differently. So here's an opportunity that I have where I'm effectively running the show. And I have certain philosophies that I believe in, which is paying people equitably or across the board. So we are a fully remote company, and a lot of the individuals that we've hired are not based in the US. A lot of the leadership is based in the US, and that was specifically done because we needed leadership to kind of be within the same time zone, or within like 6 hours of each other.
Right.
Two, a lot of the people I've hired are people from Web2 companies who have extensive experience working at companies that have already scaled. So they know where we're going towards. So they know where the puck is going, right? They know how to scale a team. Exactly.
Right.
They've done the whole thing, but they also don't want to be constrained by what's it called? They don't want to be constrained by the politics of the bureaucracy of a very, very, we're talking multi-thousand person company, which I don't know, maybe we'll get to one day. I have no idea, but we're not there yet. And I don't, and where we are now, we can still experiment and have fun.
Yeah, the issue. I mean, the issue with that. I mean, what you're talking about is kind of. I think it's like it's like the old age story, which is like, what happens is in the beginning, it's exciting, it's beautiful because we're building towards something, right? And then kind of when you get to that big machine, people start feeling like, oh, I'm just doing this one thing, or I feel like I'm a cog in a machine, and I'm not seeing the impact that I really want to have. And so that really talks about, I mean, really the culture that you have right now towards what you envision it being, and still maintaining that kind of culture, while also realizing that, hey, things are going to change because people are going to change, and as things,
exactly.
And successes determine that to a certain degree, right? What does that look like? How do people stay engaged? I mean, these are all, if you ask me, complex questions that every company has to answer, and no, I don't think there's one right answer for that. Those kind of questions.
That's right. You have to adapt with where you're going, and what needs to get accomplished, and what the individuals you want to hire. I can let you know. So I've hired 3 product managers. One of those product managers, one of the first ones I had to hire, I think I went through like 40 or 50 candidates. And funny enough, I had someone who I wanted to hire, and they at the offer stage, they said, they actually, right before I was going to give the offer, they bowed out, saying the job was going to be too complicated and too complex, and they didn't want to deal with it. So I had to restart the entire process. I went through the process again, but I started each process by saying, listen, I've almost hired someone. Here's what their feedback was. I wanted to let you know that this is, I want, if we're starting this process, this is how someone who I had already thought was the right person was going to work here. I need you to understand that. And I eventually filtered out a lot of people, and I hired one of the best product managers I've ever worked with for this. Like, she is phenomenal. Her name is Gabby. She's just like really pushing through, getting all the shit done, everything on time or nearly on time, with a brand new team all over the world. And it's just amazing to see it happen. So it's like hiring well. So going back to what I think your original question is, like, what is it like managing a team of people, disparate people with different philosophies, different backgrounds? It's hard and interesting. Like, it's everyone has different perspectives. Not everyone is career minded. Some people do treat this job like life, and I respect that. I to some degree, I don't have the best work-life balance at times, but I don't treat this like work. I treat this like a hobby. And I found a lot of people that are similar.
It's you love to do it, so you're not really working, which I think,
exactly.
I mean, if you're like me, then you're on vacation and you're still working, but your wife is looking at you like, hey man, why are you working? You're like, oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was working. I just love what I do, I mean, it's just kind of one of those things, it's just,
and there's nothing to be ashamed about that. It's fun, right? And that's how I see it, because there's nothing more interesting than this. So I have people on my team who have worked some late nights, or like late weekends or weeks, and I'm like, and I call them, I'm their manager. I feel bad. I'm talking to them. I try to make things better. We'll give people, like, we have initiatives I've introduced internally, which I'll get into in a moment. to kind of sweeten the deal a little bit. And they're all like, well, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing, so it's fine. Like, you know, my kids are already sleeping, my wife will deal with it, or my husband will deal with it, it'll be fine. I'm like, okay, well, it's a great attitude. But like stuff that we've done, stuff that we've done internally is we have this little initiative I introduced called Pocket Change, which is something I took from my previous jobs, or like peer rewards. So basically, everyone nominates people in one of our internal people management portals for things that they've done, like good things that they've done. And at the end of the month, all of leadership gets together and we all vote. Everyone gets a few votes, and we all vote on what are the most impactful things, or what are the things that are deserving of a reward. And we give everyone, a little bag of pocket tokens that they can have, because everyone at the company has a vesting package, but the vesting package is over 4 years with a 1-year cliff,
right,
to start with. But we want to make sure that people internally become more incentivized earlier on, especially folks in product and engineering, so they know what they do affects them in the near term, not just the long term.
Right.
So that was one way to incentivize them, but also, recognize hard work or after hours work. We also have because we have a lot of contractors that we've hired, non W-2s outside the US, we have a after hours, or we pay people after hours with a blended rate. Right, we kind of took all the salaries, blended them together, and got to a rate that seemed fair. Now we pay people for after hours work. So during the merge last week, we had half a dozen people that had to work late to just verify things were going to work, and we compensated them for that, because we knew that some of them were going to be up at 2 a.m. their time to
like
taking
a
care of
pseudo
this
overtime kind of thing, right? Like an
yeah
overtime. I mean, essentially, what you're saying is like, hey, we're paying them a salary, but they worked extra hours beyond like the prototypical 40-50 hour work week, right? And we're paying them on top of, right? Like the odd hours
so
that they're
these
working.
So because we're also like, as a startup, we have our own runway right now, and we can't always pay top dollar. A lot of folks, myself included, took pay cuts to come work in the space because it was worth taking a leap for. It was interesting. So the idea here is, how can we continuously compensate people and show them that they're worth what they're worth? And obviously money speaks volumes, but so does extra time off. But a lot of people, like you said, they love their job. Even when they take time off, they don't take time off. I can't tell you, myself included, how many engineers are like, hey, I'm out, and then they log in. We just had someone have a baby and they've logged in twice. We had someone get married and I've seen them log in and share stuff. I'm like, everyone is just so in this, because it's crazy to see that. I've never seen that in another job, where everyone is so personally invested in this, and not because they're on a vesting schedule, but because it's such an interesting problem to solve. Like we are literally the layer right above each blockchain. We are the base layer for communication between an application and the actual node, the node. We are effectively a data layer. We have all this data that we are gathering. And now people are trying to think about, what can we do with this?
What you're talking about, I mean, I think it was like, I don't know if I read it, like Elon Musk saying this, or like, he said that if you want to attract top talent or super smart and intelligent people, you like, the idea is like, try to solve a complex problem. Like, bring in people to help you solve a complex, meaningful problem, and you will get the best and brightest, because that's who will be attracted to a certain degree.
Yes.
Right. I mean,
exactly.
And keeping people invested, is a combination, I think, of like, giving them, like, the three things that I've read about, or I've learned in my experience as a recruiter is the people that are engaged or satisfied in a career path are the people who have autonomy, they feel they have mastery, and then they have meaning. They derive meaning from what they do. And if they have those three things constantly, right, which, I mean, isn't always a constant necessarily, but if mastery of something is incredible because you feel like, oh, I'm confident, I can be diligent at this. Autonomy is like, hey, I'm trusted, right? That's what comes with the autonomy. Hey, I'm going to do what you say, go do this. Okay, great. You don't talk to them because you're relying on them to do it. So they do it, right? And that's trust. And then meaning is like probably most important, because now they feel like they're like contributing to what they're doing means something, right? It's beyond them at that point, right? And that's what, that's the constant, I think, that we're always striving for, as company leaders, as company entities, as company teams per se, right? That's the core of what I think you've so far been able to achieve, Arthur. Man, kudos to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's very lucky when, thanks. It's very lucky. I'm very fortunate when the problem itself is just naturally intriguing, right? Then it's just doing the right
Yes.
thing when it comes to hiring.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you made a great point. One of the reasons I took a jump is, so I worked at Capital One prior to this, and it was fun at first, especially before the pandemic. The fringe benefits were out of this world. Like,
Right.
I can't, like breakfast every morning, like like 3 coffee shops in the headquarters or 2 coffee. It was just like, you
Yeah.
can go and enjoy yourself and relax, and it wasn't really work. You just came to work to schmooze half the time. So it was fun for a while.
Yeah.
And obviously there was still work and you still did things. But then there was a bunch of reorgs because a lot of people started leaving due to the, what do they call this? The Great Reset. I forgot what it was. Whatever they called the whole thing when people started.
Great. So far, I think it's called
Resignation.
the Great Resignation.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. The Great Resignation. Yeah. So we lost a ton of people, and I didn't have much control over that. I actually, to be fair, I didn't lose a single member of my personal team at the time, which was exceedingly rare. Which was cool. So I'm just going to pat myself on the shoulder for that.
Yeah,
However,
you should, man. I mean, look, I'm going to say this, and you probably realize this. People don't quit companies; they quit people.
Yeah, exactly. I've read a lot. People quit. People will leave if their manager leaves sometimes, because sometimes that person's
right.
one holding
that's
the
who
glue
they're
together.
following to a certain degree. That's who they're trusting. That's who they're following. That's who they're leading with. Sometimes, right? That's the. I mean, I left, and the person who hired and trained me in my previous firm, he came with me, right? We worked together. He hired me, and then I said I'm going to leave, and then we did it together to a certain degree, right?
That's amazing.
We've been with each other for 5 years, and then prior to that, he's the one who hired me. He's 17 years older than me. He's ironically he's a boomer who orange pilled me in Bitcoin, right? So
amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, so I was going to say is the reason I left, now aside from getting an interesting offer here, was so I used to run mobile payments. So running mobile payments for a bank is pretty cool. You get to make some really crazy decisions. Like I had to turn off debit card payments at one point for everybody in the entire US. Like it was for like a little bit just because something broke. So it's like some really crazy things that I had myself to.
So you're the one who did that.
I'm the one who did it. Yeah, there's a lot of weird things that I had to do, like, or make decisions on, turn this on, turn that on, or like ship this or not, which is really cool because a lot of it, there's knock-on effects that happen. So at some point, they were reorging everything, and my manager moved, or something happened, and I was put on to oversee all of our growth experiences at Capital One at the time, which were like Capital One Shopping and a few other things on the mobile side. And I'm like, okay, cool. So what's the point of this team, right? I understand on payments, it's like, make sure people have a seamless payments experience, that they don't accrue any unwanted interest, right? This is like a real thing. And they're like, yeah, our goal is to have a 1% conversion rate of people using like our product. And I'm like, I have no care for any of that. Like the product sucks in my mind, right? Not just, I just don't care about Capital One Shopping or Honey style products. Or like Honey app product. So I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? I'm like wasting my time. I'm not learning. I'm bored out of my mind. I literally can sit and twiddle my thumbs all day. And that's great for certain people, but I take a lot of pride from the work that I do.
Government workers typically.
Yeah. I'm gonna stop there because I can say a lot of stuff. But
I mean, yeah, I'm not censoring you, just so you know.
No. I'm I gotta watch what I say sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, I decided to leave, and now I'm here, and this is the most interesting thing. I mean, I'm working way harder than I've ever worked for anything in my life. I mean, I will let you know this. So last Wednesday through Friday, I went down to our headquarters in Tampa to meet with the leadership team. We meet periodically to discuss larger items. And then I came home, and Saturday and Sunday, we spent a lot of time taking my kids to sports and doing some other stuff. And I have been working nonstop since Sunday night, like literally all day. And obviously I take some time for myself. I play with my kids, I take them some activities. But like aside from that, back on it at 8 o'clock at night or 9 o'clock at night for a little bit. It's just there's stuff to do, and it's just interesting, right? I did make time to watch the new Star Wars Andor prequel. It was really fun. I watched that over breakfast. But aside from that, I've just been busy working. It's been it's fun. It's not work, like you said. But anyway, I think we've bashed on this subject long enough.
All right. Well, so Arthur, hey, thank you so much for your time today, man. I really appreciate it. Is there Do you want to? Are there any shout outs you want to plug in terms of like getting a hold of you guys, where people should go, people of interest who have interest in kind of coming to you guys?
Sure.
Is there anything? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So our website is pokt.network or Pocket Network, or you can just Google Pocket Network. You'll find us. We are hiring. We are hiring off of AngelList mostly. That's where all of our jobs are listed. You can always reach out to me on Twitter. It's ArtSabintsev, Art Sabintsev. I'm fairly active there. Same thing on Telegram, on Discord, etc. Yeah, we are primarily on Discord and Telegram. We have a huge community, like I said, of node runners who will be happy to chat with you and like onboard you onto our platform or onboard you onto using our protocol and securing our network, kind of being part of the base layer of Web3. Yeah, that's about it, I guess.
All right. Well, Arthur, pleasure getting to know you, the man, the myth, the legend. For a bit about crypto, this is David Hampton, the Robo Recruiter. Thank you and good night, everyone.